We're often told today that religion and politics don't mix, but a fascinating aspect of American history is that many of the key leaders helping us to become a free and independent nation were very active in church. For example, you've heard the phrase, "the shot heard round the world." This was coined by Ralph Waldo Emerson to describe the Americans at Concord, Massachusetts, fighting back after their brethren had been slaughtered at Lexington down the road. But who were the men who had stood their ground at Lexington earlier that day? It may come as a surprise to many, but they were basically the laymen of the main church there in Lexington.
And how did the whole conflict begin? In the wee hours of the morning of April 19, 1775, a night made famous by Paul Revere's ride of warning that the British were coming, the British were coming. British troops were on their way to Concord because of the storage of ammunitions. But they stopped first in Lexington because they had heard reports that the troublemakers Sam Adams and John Hancock were there, which was true.
Reverend Jonas Clark was the minister of the church in Lexington, and he hid out John Hancock and Samuel Adams in his home because the British were looking for him. The king would write a letter to the governor. He says, "I'll give everybody a pardon if they lay down their firearms and obey the king's laws, except for two people." That was John Hancock and Sam Adams. If you catch them, instantly hang them. No jury, no trial, no appeals. Instantly.
There is reason to apprehend that such rebellion hath been encouraged by the traitorous correspondence, counsels, and comfort of diverse wicked and desperate persons within our realm. We need measures to bring to condign punishment the authors in America and abettors in England of such traitorous designs. King George III, Proclamation, August 23rd, 1775.
Jonas Clark was the minister at Lexington who was housing likely two or three of the founding leaders when the British showed up in 1775, when we have the first shot heard round the world. And it was Jonas Clark and his militia from his own congregation that he had trained that actually was involved in that first battle with the British there at Lexington Concord.
Indeed, on the night of April 18th and early morning of the 19th, in this house in Lexington, Massachusetts, Sam Adams and John Hancock were visiting with the Reverend Jonas Clark, the minister of the Church of Lexington. Reverend Clark told them that he had been training his men, deacons at his church, for this very hour.
The captain, John Parker, ordered everyone to load with powder and ball, but to take care not to be the first to fire. George Bancroft.
When Colonel Parker said, if they mean to tell you to go home, but then they tell you to lay down your firearms, refuse to do it, because by British common law, we have a right to bear arms. So as they were dispersing, they turned around going back to the houses. The pistol shot ran out. Jonas Clark said it was an officer who shot first, and one of the men who was wounded, Jonathan Harrington, who was married 2 weeks earlier than that, crawled to his house, and his wife was standing at the doorstep, and he died at her feet.
There on the green lay in death the gray-haired and the young. The grassy field was red with the innocent blood of their brethren slain, crying unto God for vengeance from the ground. George Bancroft. Heedless of his own danger, Samuel Adams, with the voice of a prophet, exclaimed, "Oh, what a glorious morning is this!" For he saw his country's independence hastening on, and like Columbus in the tempest, knew that the storm bore him more swiftly toward the undiscovered world. George Bancroft.
The British then moved on from Lexington to Concord, about 6 miles away. Here at Concord did the Americans shoot back.
Concord, Massachusetts was the site of the shot heard around the world. I mean, this is where American independence started.
The people of Concord, of whom about 200 appeared in arms on that day, derived their energy from their sense of the divine power. This looking to God as their sovereign brought the fathers to their pleasant valley. This controlled the loyalty of the sons, and this had made the name of Concord venerable throughout the world. George Bancroft.
Before the 19th of April, 1775, I never heard a whisper of a disposition to separate from Great Britain. Thomas Jefferson.
On the first anniversary of Lexington Concord, Reverend Jonas Clark preached a sermon and declared, "From the 19th of April, 1775 will be dated the liberty of the American world."
America was not a happy accident. It ultimately was the byproduct of men and women who were willing to stand their ground when they saw their God-given rights to life, liberty, and property being trampled upon. They stood their ground. Sam Adams was the quintessential example of a man who stood his ground based on the principle of our God-given rights. The scripture is very clear. Inasmuch as it is up to you, be at peace with all men. But sometimes there are tyrants who won't let their subjects live peaceably. As men like Sam Adams knew, we have our freedoms because God is the source of our rights, not the king. For Providence Forum, I'm Dr. Jerry Newcomb.